Going live on YouTube. There we go. So good morning, everybody. We're here, Lynn and Sharon, along with a few other people. And we are here to read and study the book Never Forget to Laugh by Carol Howe. And um, so lovely that Carol came in and saw us the other day. It was quite a treat, to say the least. And so very grateful for um, our mighty friends, mighty companions who will come in and share with us, be here with us. I'm going to see if I can't get Mari Perone to come in to talk to us about A Course of Love, because we're doing that now on Monday evenings at 6 o'clock. So, in case anybody's wondering, that's where we're at. All right. So hopefully the book is up in the uh, screen. People can see it. And I backed up a page because uh, I wanted to start here. And since Sharon's been reading this whole time, I will take my turn and read. How are you doing today, Sharon? All right. Your mic is muted, but that's good. That is fine.
I'm
All
right
right.
here. I'm just putting chicken in. Okay.
Oh,
I'll be
sounds
right back.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, I did that. I did like a Thanksgiving dinner yesterday. I surprised everybody. I just because I had a turkey breast and made that and gravy and mashed potatoes and spinach, which everybody loves spinach.
Mhm.
So, and they were like surprised. What you've been cooking? But,
Go to the doctor, please get your lungs checked out. So thank you.
yeah, I will. Yeah, she's pretty good at, I'm supposed to see a respiratory guy this month. So maybe get some better medication. Now there's so much better medication than there were when I was a kid. So uh, it's uh, having had chronic pneumonia and bronchitis for years and years and years. And of course, I know it's the body, and I know that you know all the things about the course about sickness, and I understand all that. And yet don't seem to be able to actually actively control what's going on. Um, so anyway, uh, hi Gary, good to see you, brother, and hopefully I'm being heard on Pal Talk. Let me check and make real sure. I think so. Anyway, okay, so here we go. Um, all right, I'm just going to start over here. Um, in retrospect, every position, encounter, and opportunity was essential for Bill's evolution, enabling him to tackle the huge assignment they had accepted, one they both recognized as a prior agreement. We can view our lives the same way, recognizing that each encounter and situation is not an accident, but part of our individualized curriculum for awakening. Helen was not the villain, nor was the absent father or any of the quote unquote learning partners who paraded through Bill's life. Early conditioning promotes the belief, and this is interesting to me because not only was Bill's father basically absent, Helen's father was basically absent too. And we see that reading Absence from Felicity, that her parents were quite distant from her, and she grew up virtually alone, raised by nannies. So I just that disconnect from the parents is really common, and it's so common that I find myself when I hear people like, oh, my parents did this and that, I often find myself just going, hey, get over it, get on with your life. They're not here doing that to you now. You're the one who's doing that to you now. But I understand too that we all have our lessons that we have to learn. And if I'm seeing it, this is the thing for me. If I'm seeing it in other people, then I know that it's happening in me too. I know that I'm doing the same thing. So I don't need to work on helping other people change their minds. I just need to change my mind. Okay, so early conditioning promotes the belief that our particular strong suits, those areas of vocation and avocation that come so naturally, our possessions, friends or family, and everything else exist for our own aggrandizement. The course's aim is to undo that perspective. And I think aggrandizement is a good word, is to make us feel grand, grander, which is interesting. The course's aim is to undo that perspective, and it encourages us always to ask, what is this for? How are we using these gifts? Bill developed talents and acquired experience, as do we all, and was motivated by A Course in Miracles teachings to move from a sense of specialness, the desire to appropriate his particular portfolio of talents for personal gain, to his own unique special function, using those same gifts for a higher purpose. This shift in purpose provides the ideal opportunity for the unfolding of our own service and thus for maximal healing. So shifting the purpose in our minds of what it is that seems to be happening is the main thing that will help us see the truth about what we're here for. And it reminds me of Dove's presentation the other day at Awakening Together, where the discussion was about purpose, in that when you shift your purpose, then the lessons shift. Maybe the same things happening to you, but the things that you're seeing, the lessons you're experiencing, become meaningful in that way of our spiritual growth. So once we shift the purpose and recognize that, what I think is happening is really happening for my own best interest, then actually everything that comes to us, we can interpret then as being here for my own best interest, because that's what Jesus tells us. What could you not accept if you but knew that everything that's happening is for you? And so here, this is from the Course. Such is the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness, his use of what you made to heal instead of harm. To each he gives a special function. In salvation, he alone can fill, apart for only for him. Nor is the plan complete until he finds his special function and fulfills the part assigned to him, to make himself complete within a world where incompletion rules. Yet while in time there is still much to do, and each must do what is allotted him, for on his part does all the plan depend. He has a special part in time, for so he chose, and choosing it, he made it for himself. His wish was not denied, but changed in form. His wish was not denied, but changed in form to let it serve his brother and himself, and thus become a means to save instead of lose. So here Jesus is telling us that the wish, what we think were happening, actually changes. And let's look at where that's from. I think I looked this up last week too. It's from text 530, which I don't like that they put the actual page number. Let's see, let me find my book. One of my mini Course in Miracle books. I don't know if I have every version. I have a lot of versions of A Course in Miracles here. And I still use the blue book, so that's the one I like. Let's see, so the 530 is the special function. It's text chapter 23 or 25, section 6, the special function, where Jesus talks about, once we have figured out our function, then everything changes. Everything changes in form to um, make that happen. And actually, it's already in that form. So interesting. So Carol continues. One might reasonably ask, what kind of healing? I'm not sick. A Course in Miracles reminds us that indeed our minds are sick. We engage daily in judgmental, unloving, defensive thoughts and behaviors that specifically interfere with our happiness. We need take only a cursory, unbiased look at the condition of the world to know that something is terribly wrong. It appears to be the domain of pain and suffering, and for most that is the case. A Course in Miracles teaches, however, this need not be. Our beliefs, attitudes, self-absorption, and attachment to having our way, our unconscious programming, our endless attack, all can and must be changed if we are to be free of insecurity and lack. And it shows us how. And so, yeah, that's absolutely true. The Course is all about teaching us how to change our minds. And I'm grateful for that. Let's see. So I'll continue. And I'll put up the list of participants so I can see if anybody puts up their hand. There we go. Okay. Bill was determined to heal his attitudes and practice shifting his purpose from specialness to special function, changing his mind from fear to love, and from holding resentments to doing no harm. Like everyone, he began with a divided or compromised dedication, but the Course promises that only a little willingness is required to move from our fixed, unhelpful perspectives to those that bring peace of mind. It would have been understandable for Bill to retire once A Course in Miracles was finished, to rest on his academic laurels, congratulating himself for a job well done, and such a path would certainly have been deserved. But that was not to be his choice. So, fortified with a little willingness, Bill began to move away from his role of esteemed professor and to redefine his primary goal as the practice of forgiveness. So here it is. Bill set up his goal as to practice forgiveness. That's what he wanted to do. And when we decide that that's the goal, everything that happens to us, which it already has been, everything that happens to us is a reflection of that goal. It is a reflection of that goal and is in furtherance of that goal. So if you listen to Dove on Sunday at Awakening Together, that's what he was talking about, and made a really beautiful presentation about that. Setting the goal and the purpose. And once you have set the goal and the purpose, all things will come to you to make that purpose work. And if anybody has any comments or thoughts, please feel free to put up your hand or just open up your mic and say
Well,
something.
just let me know when you want me to take over or whatever, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I'll just read a little bit and then let you.
I'm here. No.
Okay. All right. So, chapter 8. As with all chapters, Bill's time in New York was coming to a close. A Course in Miracles was finished, and Helen, 14 years his senior, had finally retired. He had managed to keep her employed past the usual retirement age of 65 to finish the last course details. Before they had contemplated its publication, Bill had applied for and been granted a 6-month sabbatical to begin in July 1976. Through no intentional planning, the first edition of Course in Miracles made its debut the month before in June 1976. With the next stage of the course's history unfolding, coupled with the fact that it was a difficult time at the university in general, it was a great time to leave. Bill felt he simply could not stay at Columbia now that their quote-unquote guilty secret, as they called it, was out in the open, a potentially awkward situation for anyone else concerned as well. And in parentheses, he did not specifically attempt to conceal or reveal his association with the course. Some colleagues found out about it, though, about it through conversation or the few articles ultimately written about the work. Others may never have found out. Into parentheses. He had been through a 10-year life-altering spiritual overhaul, and to resume his work with traditional psychology as though nothing had happened, no matter how proficient he was, would have been an impossible step backward. And of course, that was in his point of view. And I suppose that, he may have thought that he couldn't go, continue, but, we don't know. Um, so he decided, I guess, that he didn't want to put himself in that position. Bill had labored diligently on the PAS, which is the Personality Assessment System, for approximately 20 years, teaching, mentoring, researching, writing papers, and teasing out every available bit of insight into how human beings predictably operate. Nevertheless, he closed that door too. He gave up his research on the ego, which he considered his major academic contribution, as he and Helen became immersed in scribing and attempting to practice A Course in Miracles. The Course had dealt a devastating blow to his favorite topic. And if you believe you understand something of the dynamics of the ego, let me assure you that you understand nothing of it, for of yourself you could not understand it. The study of the ego is not the study of your mind. In fact, the ego enjoys studying itself and thoroughly approves the undertakings of students who would, quote, analyze it, thus approving its importance. And yeah, isn't that funny? Because yeah, the more we study the ego, the more the ego is reaffirmed as being the master. It's hilarious. Sorry, I have itchy nose. Itchy nose. All right. After years of statements like this, Bill could feel the foundations of his academic life collapsing. Finally, he found it too bizarre and contradictory to research the intricacies of how egos form and operate on one hand, and to actively practice undoing them on the other. He abandoned his search. As Whit Whitson stated at Bill's memorial service, at the same time he was mapping the ego, he was channeling the process by which we could escape, like mapping an earthquake and then making a plan for how to get out of it. Yeah, that's it. As his sabbatical was ending in early 1977, Bill took a leave of absence, then applied for another, but the second one was denied. He now had to make a final decision to stay or leave. He chose to leave. Because he had started at Columbia in February 1958, he was eligible for early retirement beginning in 1978. Thus, after beginning his sabbatical in mid-1976, he never returned to his academic or administrative duties. During that period of being employed but not actively working, he made several trips to California at Judy's invitation to meet with groups about the course. And in parentheses, Helen also participated in a few of them, although under protest, because she strongly disliked traveling. These trips planted the seed in Bill and introduced the possibility of leaving not only Columbia, but New York itself. The sketches were entertaining the idea of moving to Tiburon because Judy planned to work on her PhD in San Francisco, and additionally, she knew many people in the Bay Area. Also, Jerry Jampowski, a close friend of Judy's, was a longtime resident of Tiburon. During those visits, Bill realized that both Jerry and Judy needed help with their personal lives, and that living close to them would be ideal for offering his assistance. This provided a pivotal rationale for moving. As he weighed his options, Bill also had to confront his fear about leaving his secure, tenured position, one's not easily attained. In addition to his fine reputation and the prestige of being associated with Columbia, He was financially secure. Now he wavered as he looked at giving it all up, like standing with one foot on each side of an ever-widening chasm. It was that branching of the road we all come to eventually, and he chose the California path. So yeah, that makes sense to me. You know, if I could retire and move to California, I might have done that, especially Tiburon, which is a beautiful place. And the Bay Area is just lovely. So Sharon, I'm going to turn the mic over to you to continue reading. Okay, and you're muted.
All right. Do you feel well enough to talk when you have pneumonia? If you have pneumonia, I thought about that. Does it hurt to talk?
No, it just is, no.
Rest
Not
is the
at
thing,
all.
but rest will be the most important thing for you.
Yeah, and that's, you know, when we're all done with all this, I will rest. I think I might have pneumonia,
Gloria
yeah,
just asked if you have pneumonia. Yeah, she thinks she does.
yeah.
That's why I think you should rest, but
Yeah, I know the feeling and I'm pretty sure, but you know, we'll see. The doctor can confirm or deny. It doesn't matter because whatever they give me is going to help. So,
right.
When are you going to the doctor?
When you going to the doctor?
after this is all done this morning, I'll call and see if I can get in.
Okay, good.
They're usually good about getting me in, so they're familiar with me.
If you have to
I'm one
call,
of
you
the-
right, you wouldn't call yet because it's too early, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So where'd you leave off?
Besides leaving academia behind.
Besides leaving academia behind, Bill also cut ties with most of his friends and obviously the New York lifestyle. He notes his propensity for leaving finished errors behind. I talked about it, of course, when it was necessary and when I would leave. Probably a lot of my life has been that way. I do whatever I think is necessary at the time, and then I withdraw from it. In characteristic fashion, he abandoned his life, his career, the person he had been, like a suit of clothes left hanging in the closet. That time was over. And this brings me to when Regina had a really good job. Lynn, and you remember that. She had the Holy Spirit come in and speak to her so perfectly that she was being guided to leave her job, which was paying her a lot. And that, to me, that took courage too. Like, in other words, we are so in our head about having retirement and having enough money and having and just the idea that we are these people, and if we don't, like, I hear people say, well, I have a perfect credit score, and that's what my dad used to say. And all these are just concepts that we have downloaded into our system. And so the fear of actually moving on had to be, both of them, Regina and Bill, because it's like this. But there's a knowing, and of course, the knower in us, the spirit in us, will move us no matter what. And sometimes there's no story. You just move into another, place. Anyway, ACIM states, fear not that you will be abruptly lifted up and hurled into reality. I always like that one. Time is kind, and if you use it on behalf of reality, it will keep gentle pace with you in your transition. A Course in Miracles does pretty much tell us this is a very gentle process, because the way it was set up as mind training, it's just gradual. The layers just go, and thin out and thin out and thin out. Anyway, the urgency is only in dislodging your mind from its fixed position here. I think Bill often felt that. Indeed, he had been picked up, hurled into California by some volition, not his own. Right, that was spirit. Leaving New York was wrenching, even though he was following his excellent guidance in making the choice. the right and inevitable one with him. New York had been the center of Bill's world, when even during his early days in Washington, D.C., when he frequently traveled there on weekends. As a sophisticated Easterner, he did not fit the casual California stereotype, but he traded his daily coat and tie for jeans and a sweater and prepared to enter this new phase of his life, even if somewhat reluctantly at first. As with the end of any chapter, there was a sense of loss and some grief at the prospect of leaving New York. But predictably, he found cause for more good humor regarding his new home, often joking about California lifestyle.
I wanted to say something real quickly here.
Okay.
Regina, when she first left her job in Boston, she moved to Asheville. That's where she was, and that's where all those people were that she was working with were in North Carolina in Asheville. And
yeah, wasn't David Hoffmeister there then?
I don't know if David was there. Probably
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But it's real interesting to me that, she came here to Pueblo and now Asheville is like in total ruins. And she's in a place where nothing like that's ever going to happen. So I think we're in the safest place in the world.
She's in Gloria asked me where she is now, and she's in Colorado, but she's not in Levita anymore. She's in another area. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same area, basically. She moved to Pueblo, where I live. So she came over here to Pueblo, which shocked the heck out of me. But she was guided by the Holy Spirit to come to Pueblo. And so she came here and right now she is, they did build a house up in Beulah, which is, it's where we go to, it's the Pueblo Mountain Park is right there. So it's right outside of Pueblo. Um, but
Lynn was friendly with Regina. I wasn't as, she was the teacher for me, but I didn't know her as well as you did.
Yeah, but just the fact that she was guided to move out here was pretty amazing to me. And we follow where we're guided. So and yeah, she sold her house here, so but she's got that house in Beulah, and then she's got the place in Levita, the
Condo.
retreat center. And she has a
Yeah, but
condo.
she also has a condo there too.
Yeah, she also has a condo there, yeah. So, and her mom owns a house there too, so.
Right.
But, that's just south of here, so. But yeah, all in Colorado, so.
I think we're always, I do feel like we're being guided always, because if you would have told me that I would have moved to a place like Altoona, which is a very remote, different place than Philly, totally different. And I've had a lot happen in Philadelphia with my mind. So I think Spirit was moving us. It's always moving us. It has to be, because even though it's just looking, when we start to study A Course in Miracles, sometimes there has to be, I think Glorian moved too. You had something happen. Yeah, and sometimes you don't move, but I think it's definitely, it takes a lot of faith to leave your job.
Yeah.
Anyway, so should I finish? Should I go on?
Yeah, go on.
During the time, yes, I truly believe I will come back here. Where will you come back, Glorian?
No, I was living in PA, and then that happened, and I was meant to come back here. So I think
you're from New York, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes. Born and bred.
Yeah. See, and I love Philadelphia. I still love Philadelphia. So I get to go now because my son lives there. So I go. Well, actually, my sister still lived there too, so I always get to go. But it just seems like we're being moved perfectly. We're always in the right spot. We can't not be. As Karen always says, everything's happening perfectly. So Anyway, during the time of Bill's sabbatical and leave taking, Jim Boland, a friend of Judy's, devoted course student and editor of popular magazine Psychic, wanted to publish an article about ACIM. Bill and Helen felt it would be misleading to have it appear in a publication with that name. So at Bill's suggestion, it was renamed New Reality. Wow, I didn't know that. The article appeared in 1977 and the response was overwhelming and widespread. What remained of the first 5,000 sets of the course printed a year earlier with Reed Erickson's generous donation quickly sold out, requiring an immediate second printing. Thousands of letters and inquiries flooded in, indicating ACIM's immense impact on those first readers. With the world out far and wide, Bill, for better or worse, would never again enjoy anonymity regarding his role in birthing the course. In the spring of 1978, a friend gave our family a subscription to New Realities magazine, and the inaugural issue featuring A Course in Miracles arrived soon after. As for many, it was my introduction to the course. For many years, I had been looking for answers to only vaguely defined questions, reading endlessly, gradually getting in touch with feelings, looking more honestly at my motivations. I was fascinated with this article, and when I read the introduction to the text, something in me responded. I could feel the power, the truth, and the light come through the words. Now, isn't that true for all of us? Like, you know, what I remember when I started the course, I was substituting and I was teaching. I had a program at an art center, so I had that, and then I would sub. And I remember reading it and feeling like this spaciousness right away. It becomes like almost like the course becomes like a passion, and the fire is lit there. Like it's just, and it's done like the mind training is done so systematically. It's just a brilliant, brilliant teaching. I could feel the power, the truth, and the light coming through the words. I ordered the books, and when I finally held the newly delivered, unopened package, I knew without question that this was my way home. I had no clue about the enormity of the shift that was bound to take place. I only knew that my search was over. I often tell students that one's life has a life of its own, and Bill's was no exception, nor was mine. You know, when she says that here, you know, one's life, you know, that's it. I mean, life is synonymous with God. So it's just that life is really lifing all the time. During the year Bill was closing the doors on New York, I was devouring the course as the most amazing work I had ever encountered. It was literally irresistible, second in importance only to raising my children. It became the most all-encompassing element in my life. It's funny, I graduated college in 1976, and she says here in May 1978, on the last of Bill's several cross-country trips to finalize his move from New York to Barron, our paths crossed in Denver, Colorado, my home at the time. My life would never be the same. Okay, you have to move.
Oh, there's a lot of footnotes.
Yeah, she does.
There
Okay.
we go.
Okay, so Tabiran is in California. Yeah. No, in Denver. Where is it? Do you know?
Where what? Tiburon?
Tiburon.
Is it California?
Okay. This
By
section
San Francisco.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the teaching, like even when I read like A Journey Without Distance, I just felt so that childhood excitement. You know, that's the thing about A Course in Miracles. It comes in at the perfect time. And sometimes I walked away from the course just because it's just a dry period where I was doing other things in spiritual teachings, but I always came back to it because it is a very, very powerful teaching. Anyway, this section includes some of my own personal experiences with Bill, along with those of others, since we met at the point of his transition from New York to California. After 23 years in New York, this was a major disruption for him. And our time together seemed to be about helping him anchor into his new home, accept his role with ACIM, and begin his final healing. In the early spring of 1978, I received a brochure from the Association of Humanistic Psychology. As I was not a member, I had never before received a mailing from them, nor did I ever again about their regional conference to be held in Denver, featuring the publisher of A Course in Miracles, Judy Scutch. Most captivating of it all, it stated that Bill Thetford would also be there, though not as a presenter. I was thrilled. By that time, I had been a devoted course student for 9 months. I loved it and would have gone to any length to meet anyone involved with ACIM, especially Bill or Helen. On the appointed evening, my husband Bob and I arrived at Regis College. The conference location, and were surprised to find folding chairs and a temporary stage set up outside, an ill-considered decision, as May evenings in Colorado can be very cold. There had been no mention of an outdoor event in the brochure. We greatly enjoyed Judy's spirited presentation, which confirmed that ACIM was indeed a world-class enterprise, despite no sign of Bill. Since it was growing colder by the minute and I had brought only a lightweight sweater, I left shortly before the end of the presentation and headed for the nearest building. On entering, I saw a tall, attractive man standing alone to one side of a large reception area, and instantly knew it was Bill. And in that instant, looking into those indescribable eyes, I felt an immediate and ancient recognition, a connection unlike any I had ever experienced before. The sense of familiarity I felt with the course was amplified several-fold on seeing him. I introduced myself, thanking him for all he had done to bring this marvelous work forward. In those delicious 10 minutes before everyone else succumbed to the cold and came indoors, I had the opportunity to visit with him, but more importantly, to be in his power, yet totally unassuming presence. Words fail here.
I wanted to say something real quick. I went to Regis College. That was I actually graduated from Regis, and I know exactly where this event was held. I could just see them putting out those chairs, and it's a Jesuit college there in Denver. And as you're reading, I'm imagining, them sitting outside there in the area, the courtyard. And then I'm assuming the building that she went into was probably the student center, which is right next to it. And that's probably where all the other people came as well. So I could just envision this whole situation with with them there.
And you could see why maybe you picked the book up, because it's all planned. Perfect plan. Carrie's here. Carrie, hi. Are you there, Carrie?
Yeah,
You want to read a little bit now?
Sure, I can read for a while.
You
All
sure?
right.
Because I know you have a cold. I don't want you to do.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I push through all this stuff. None of this stuff actually, gets to me. I honestly, I'm used to it. You know that,
Yeah, I just don't know. I think that you have a disposition that is incredible. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting because, think about the earlier years when I used to be on here and I'd be coughing and sneezing and oh my God, I was just so, I'm much, much better now than I ever was before. It's pretty amazing. And I don't know, I think maybe COVID kind of helped me out a little bit too, strangely enough. Anyway, okay, so she's talking about Bill and meeting him at Regis. Uh, Regis is our friend too. And Regina, all those Reggie folks. Anyway, he seemed to be a man with no mask, no pretense, nothing to hide, and no agenda to pursue. And he made no attempt to be impressive or anything else for that matter. He was simply present, a graceful, authentic human being, a rarity in my experience. As we spoke for those few minutes before the crowd discovered him, I was enchanted by his beautiful voice, although I cannot remember a word he said. Anyone fortunate enough to have heard Bill speak, especially in person, knows the healing quality of his lovely bass voice. After we shared a brief goodbye, I rode home in silence, spellbound and intensely moved by this instant heart-to-heart connection with a seeming stranger. Tiburon, California, a progressive upscale community with gorgeous views of the Bay Area, located across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco, was about to become Bill's new home. Now 55, he was only a few weeks away from beginning the California chapter of his life. Inwardly, he recognized that there was really no choice about this move, although his ego mind was still ambivalent. Only later did I discover that his stop in Denver was on the last of several trips to California to finalize his moving plans. On one of his earlier visits to Tiburon, while out for his usual morning walk, Bill had unexpectedly met a recent acquaintance. He asked him if he knew of any apartments for rent, and the man told him one was available next door to him, and that it had been vacant for a while, most unusual for the area. Bill looked at it, declared it as perfect on all accounts, and made arrangements to move in. His new home was on, aptly named Paradise Drive, right across from Angel Island, paralleling the water's edge, with a stunning view of the San Francisco Bay, and only a 2-minute walk to Jerry Jampowski's home. Dr. Gerald Jampowski, one of the first and most influential course advocates, had founded the Center for Attitudinal Healing in Tiburon, based on A Course in Miracles principles in 1975. Judy and Bob Sketch, also newly planted from New York, were a few houses on the other side of Jerry, so all were neighbors and only a short walk to charming downtown Tiburon. Bill's ease of finding a place to live was hardly the first serendipitous experience for him. In New York, the same inner direction had led him to the apartment of his dreams, where he lived for 18 of his 23 years there. Of an earlier, quote, perfect house find, Bill wrote, "At the time, I didn't pay much attention to the fact that I had experienced this inner prompting because that would be unscientific. I couldn't acknowledge that. However, I did make note of it and thought it might be intuition, so I could talk about it a little, but not too much. Yet I didn't know what to do with it. I certainly couldn't account for it. This was not the first time this sort of thing had happened to me, but was a major example, and I couldn't ignore it." So there he was in June 1978 with a tabula rasa, a blank slate for a new chapter. James Feingold, a retired architect and one of Bill's early California acquaintances, who became a close friend and companion, was instrumental in getting him settled into his apartment, decorating it with the few possessions Bill had sent from New York. When Bill left for his West Coast adventure, he had relinquished most of what he owned, including a great many books and most of his music, except his entire Mozart collection, which was very dear to him. And what he left behind was not a huge amount, as he was not particularly into accumulating worldly possessions. For the 10 years I knew him, he seemed more of an advocate of voluntary simplicity than consumption. Switching my glasses here. There we go. In addition to leaving the possessions behind, he abruptly cut almost all ties with friends and acquaintances of many years, both professional and social, as if clearing the decks for the final challenge of his life, to fully and completely practice forgiveness. Jules provided a service of paramount importance, helping him become familiar with the day-to-day requirements of living in Tiburon, because the practical matters of life were definitely Bill's short suit, especially in a strange setting. And I got to say, that place is really beautiful. I went out there. I've been out there a couple times, and um, uh, I went out for the attitudinal healing training. Went and became trained to do the healing circles with Jerry Jampolsky and his folks, and that was also his birthday. I think he turned like 80 or something, and Carlos Santana came to his birthday party. It was pretty amazing, a pretty amazing trip to San Francisco. And
You went, were you there just once? Because I remember when you went.
I at the attitudinal healing just that one time, and then I went a few years later, actually with Prudence to a oneness event over. It was over in the Tiburon area. It was across the bridge. So and I stayed at Rep Tony's place when I went there. So that was pretty cool too. So, you know, I love the oneness movement is just such a wonderful, wonderful group of people. And they put on such beautiful events. So, but yeah, I got to spend, some time with Prudence in San Francisco or in Tiburon also. So, anyway, I can see where it is. Yeah, yeah, that's Marin County, I guess is what that is. So, yeah, beautiful place. So and there's a picture of Bill's new home in Tiburon. All right. Right away, their friendship deepened and they discovered common interests. Jules and Bill settled into a pattern of helping to edit some of Jerry Jampolsky's earlier books, a process that worked very well for all concerned. They also collaborated in editing a book of Helen's poetry, but their prize project was extracting some of their favorite excerpts from A Course in Miracles, the most beautiful, poetic, to create the book Choose Once Again. This extensive editing occurred over a period of several years and interwoven with his other interests and projects gave Bill an important focus during this regrouping phase of his life. It's interesting. So, and of course, that's where Diedrich Wolsack and the Choose Again came from, was from Jerry Jampolsky and the attitudinal healing. So, that was the reason I wanted to go and get certified to do the healing circles, was because I was, so in love with Diedrich's work. So it all comes together. It all comes together. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. Okay, so
It
let's see,
really
Bill.
does come together, and we don't realize it when we're going through it.
No, not at all. I mean, it's like in my life, my God, the things that have happened, all moving me toward, this, incredible place where I am right now, just by coincidence. So many coincidences, like Regina moving to Pueblo, crazy, huh? You would never have thought about it. But here we are, and here, all the things that we did together. I'll never forget. Um, and that things happen as they do. Sometimes when you're a little birdie and you're sitting in the nest and you want to stay in the nest and you're comfortable there, your parents gotta just give you a little push and kick you out. And that's what kind of happened to me. It was, I was comfy in my little nest, and then, things came about to push me out. And I'm grateful that they did now. At the time, I was pretty mad. But Today I'm really happy. Oh my gosh. All right. So, Bill often commented on the feeling of discontinuity between the various major chapters of his life. Many people feel that way when they take new jobs, end or begin marriages, or relocate to another city or country. It often seems, on settling into a new situation, that the old one was a faraway dream, unrelated to the present. Happily, every moment is discontinuous from the one preceding this. Man, this is such an important message. Every moment is discontinuous from the one preceding it, always allowing us to make new choices about how to respond to current circumstances. Releasing past thoughts and concerns, and with it our stress, is essential, since indiscriminately allowing past programming to dictate our present approach to life is unsatisfactory at best and maddening at worst. During the summer of 1978, as Bill adjusted to his new environment, a tiny Course in Miracles community was evolving in Denver. I was still in my evangelical period, enthusiastically studying the course and attempting to persuade everyone I knew to check it out. Many would open the book, but immediately decided it was too long, too religious in language, or too complicated. I can understand that too.
So can I.
Eventually, 14 people coalesced who were sufficiently interested in the material to meet regularly. So in August, a close friend and colleague, Jason Kane, and I began facilitating our first study group. Later that summer, an acquaintance called to say that Bill and the Sketches had moved to Tiburon, California, a town I had never heard of. I mentally filed that away, and within a month, Jason unexpectedly announced he was going to Tiburon, of all places, for 5 weeks to study Aston patterning, an integration of deep tissue work, massage, and movement education. He had been Rolfing, oh, I love that, for 5 years and was feeling a deep call to study this new work. And Rolfing is an amazing technology. I love it. Little did he know the other reason he needed to go to Tiburon. With that new information, I could practically hear Bill's voice in my mind calling, "Come on out, come out, come out," encouraging a visit to Tiburon. A most particular experience, to say the least. I could not imagine that he even remembered our short conversation, much less that it would ever continue. In fact, it seemed the most arrogant and preposterous thought I could possibly entertain, but it strongly persisted. I had always recognized my intuitive faculty, very helpful when I listened, but I didn't always follow it. Early conditioning prevailed, yet this, quote, call from Bill, unquote, was so strong I simply couldn't ignore it. The internal turmoil was escalating. As a first step and not knowing where it would lead, I wrote a letter of introduction to Bill on Jason's behalf, hoping to arrange a meeting for them and thanking him again for A Course in Miracles. Having no idea how to contact him, I sent the letter in care of the Foundation for Inner Peace and hoped for the best. 2 weeks later, October 31st, Halloween, while I was getting my little boys ready for Halloween, the phone rang, and to my astonishment, there was Bill. He had received my letter and said he would be delighted to meet with Jason and ask if I would be coming out also. It seemed he too had recognized something familiar, a common bond. Ken Wapnick has noted that for Bill, leaving New York was like leaving a prison, and it apparently took him no time at all to start exploring other relationship options. Hallelujah. At first, as an habitual response, I declined the invitation. The next morning, however, I came to my senses and said, "What the hell was I thinking?" No, the next morning, however, after considerable reflection, I accepted the incredible gift being offered. Of course, I would go to Tiburon. I must surely have lost my mind to consider doing otherwise. Everyone, excuse me, I should stop laughing. Everyone but me was saying yes. Bob was supportive of the plan, and Jason insisted I go. Bob was not particularly interested in studying metaphysics, including A Course in Miracles, but he never interfered with my pursuits. Thus, in mid-November 1978, watching the Rocky Mountains pass far below, I marveled that I was really flying to California with no agenda, simply following my own instincts and challenging old, entrenched ideas about what I could or could not do. Exactly. It was a crucial lesson for me, coming to terms with buried self-doubt as well as old habits of taking care of the needs of others, but not acknowledging my own. I was not always my own best advocate. Now I was actually acting on an intuitive urge, assuming I had a place to fill rather than repressing it in favor of, quote, playing it safe, unquote, or being polite. It seemed a big risk at the time, but everything had worked so well and the logistics were so uncomplicated that the trip had every hallmark of quote unquote destiny, and it did turn out to be life-changing in many respects. Wow, this is pretty amazing. So we have about 4 minutes. Do you want to read a little bit, Sharon? My voice is getting tired.
Absolutely. Jason picked me up in Timberland on a Thursday afternoon and took me to his friend's house where I stayed. Happily, it was within walking distance of the ACIM neighborhood on Paradise Drive. Can you imagine being one of those? I would have loved that.
I know it.
We contacted Bill right away, and he invited us to come to his apartment in the next morning. We arrived at the appointed hour, and I will never forget that encounter. His home felt like a sanctuary, the peaceful quarters of an old monk. Bill was tall, smiling, and in his uniform, a favorite blue crew neck sweater and Levi's. I'm quite short, so as we embraced in a big hug, my head was on his chest. I could hear his heart, which seemed very loud and large. It was an indescribably rich and wonderful moment. I was thrilled to have a chance to spend more time in his wonderful presence. A word that will appear often in this book because no other fits. Jason recalled his first impressions. I remember walking in and thinking he looked like a college professor. He was immediately warm and friendly, giving me a big hug. And the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, a healer." At the time, Bill knew nothing about Jason or his profession. And it was like, whoa, he was just so conscious and so tuned into everything and had the appearance of not being. From the first meeting, we had a relationship. There was a building of relationship that just started. I felt accepted immediately without hesitation, and we were instant friends. That experience of his warm welcome will always be a profound and totally precious memory. All right, so we can start next week on this. Judy Scutch was divorced, right, Lynn?
Yeah, she divorced and then married Bill Whitson. So yeah.
Maybe because Bob Scutch wasn't into this, but Bob Scutch wrote the book, A Journey Without Distance, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't think it was, like the kind of divorce like we're thinking of.
No, it wasn't a mean thing. It was just like a whatever. Yeah.
Like we don't belong to each other anymore.
Right. Right now we want to have a different experience. That's all it is. Glorian's laughing. Certainly not like my divorce, Glorian, and yours.
Yeah, that is absolutely, I'm sure, quite true. So anyway, thank you so much, Sharon. I've really enjoyed this. And
I am too. And you know what? It's so cold in my house that I put an electric blanket on me and I feel cozy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's probably I got. That's part of it's been very cold. The air is so dry here that you just everything is like an assault to your respiratory system here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop